So are you feeling like Elon Musk has taken a bit of a step back here? I feel like they've bullied this guy. I can't even believe I'm saying this out loud, but I do feel like he's been bullied into submission. And it says that this bill would codify the Doge cuts. Where are we at on the Doge thing? It feels like it was big and he was getting somewhere. And then there was so much pushback with literally lighting Tesla freaking dealerships on fire. And what happened to him in the media and his stock that he almost gave up. What is your thought there?
So I see it a little differently. I think he made huge promises about the kinds of waste, fraud, and abuse they were going to find. He promised there was going to be $1 trillion in cuts. Honestly, there's a lot of very good-hearted, hardworking people working in government. I think there was just a lot less waste than he was hoping to find. I think
Really?
they found, yeah, what they found was, closer to, I think it was, in the billions, but much, much less than he had promised. There were a lot of things that he made big announcements about on Twitter that were not actually like he had to walk back. It turned out they weren't really true. There's a really funny story about one of his like wrecking balls that he threw into Social Security and found that, honestly, there really was very little waste, fraud, and abuse there. And as a result of the cuts, people were sort of waiting on the phone for 6 hours, seniors, desperate seniors, to find out if they were still getting, the problem is that like the largest spending in this country is actually spending on vulnerable people that I think most Americans want to see getting that assistance, whether it's seniors or disabled people or children. There just was a lot less than I think he had promised and was hoping to find. And so he was amplifying things, but I think he was sort of over amplifying things. And honestly, President Trump, I think, was very attuned to the ways in which Elon Musk has a lot of conflicts of interest when it comes to working with the government. He was charged with finding cuts to agencies that are investigating him for abuses and potential, problems within his own companies. He is unbelievably close to the Chinese Communist Party because the entire supply chain of Tesla for Teslas that are not made in the US is in Shanghai. And so his fortune basically exists at the largesse of Xi Jinping, the head of the CCP. So he is China's greatest cheerleader in the United States. And there was this really amazing story that came out where, because there was a leak to the New York Times, we were made aware before the fact that Elon Musk was planning to sit in on a meeting about our potential war plans with China, which of course would have been a huge, huge conflict of interest. President Trump found out about this and actually said, what the F, he used the real word, what the F is Elon doing there? He has business in China. Make sure he doesn't go. So I think the president, who sees Elon as a very good friend, is very grateful to him for the contributions to his campaign, is also very protective of the United States and our interests, and never for a moment lost sight of the potential conflicts of interest. And so I think he wanted to give Elon a sense of respect and gratitude. And so he gave him this position, but I think it's been made clear to him that the time for him to return to his businesses is probably now.
Interesting. Okay. You bring up China and Elon's business being in China. I got to admit, I'm you're going to hear this come out of my mouth a lot. I'm really confused. I was listening to you, I think it might have been on Abby Phillips, and I obviously listen to you all the time. And you were saying, listen, I don't like the plane. I see the Qatar plane as a bribe. That said, I'm very happy that he's bringing trillions from the Middle East into the States and investing here. I think it's going to help the middle class. But if we were to litigate, just, some of the things that some of these countries have supported, we're lifting sanctions off of Syria. We're trying to strike a deal with Iran. There are civil rights abuses here that are extraordinary. There are terror groups. There's all kinds of atrocities that occur. Now, on one hand, it's, hey, let's stop trying to push our American values in Iran and Afghanistan. They want Sharia law. Let's incentivize by offering, hey, we can all make money here. Let's not go to war. you can, okay, I can follow that. But on the same token, we do or don't feel that way about China because we want to get iPhones out of there so they're not spying on all of us, right? Like, where is the line? How much unethical behavior are we willing to tolerate from another country for business sake? I cannot wrap my head around the discrepancies.
I think for me, the argument about getting out of China is more an economic one than a values one.
Okay.
Obviously, they're terrible actors. They're committing genocide against Uyghurs in the Xinjiang region, which is, by the way, where much of the cotton industry is right now. And the cotton, even in these big brands that pretend they're not getting cotton from there, they are.
Got it.
Marco Rubio actually passed a bill to forbid slave labor in the cotton that's produced and put into clothing. But there's the Chinese are really good at getting around things like that. So they're really bad on that front, but that would not, I think, be an America first reason to decouple from China.
Okay.
The problem with China is that they're screwing over our workers. So for me, China is less about foreign policy and more about domestic economic policy,
I see.
to where the corporations in this country have simply gotten addicted to the cheap labor in China. And the thing about China is it's an industrial economy. So they don't actually need to make a profit so much as they need to keep people working in these factories that they built, these enormous factories, which is where Shine and Temu come in. Even in China with their slave labor, it doesn't cost 50 cents to make a pair of plastic earrings. That stuff was produced to evade the tariffs we already had on them because there was a law that Trump got rid of called de minimis, which means, and I hope this isn't too much in the weeds.
No, I'll ask you if it is. If I can't, if I can't follow you, I'll break it down more with questions. Go ahead. Sorry, de minimis.
De minimis meant that if the contents of a certain case was less than $800, it could skirt the tariffs that we had already on China. So they produced these entire industries, entire websites and apps and factories to produce cheap crap so that when the censors would come and look at it, they'd say, oh, look, it's all a bunch of cheap crap. And they could evade the tariffs that way and keep the lights on in their factories. So this whole system, we rely on them for a lot in terms of foreign policy, but even in terms of just this addiction we have to cheap stuff, people think that's good for the working class. It's not. It would be much better for the working class to themselves be employed in 21st century factories where they have great jobs that are powered by AI but require human effort, high-skilled jobs where they would make much more money and then be able to afford, one expensive doll for their daughter rather than, 20 cheap pieces of from the dollar store that break immediately, which is all they can afford right now. Wow. And the thing that drives me the most crazy is the elites have already, by the way, made that decision for their children. Like you go to a rich person's house and their child has, one or two or three very expensive dolls. There's no crap anywhere.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the podcast, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. And make sure to let me know what guests you want to see on in the future.